Alright, so week 2 went pretty well. I got about 3 or 4 hours of personal time, development time, career time this week, a little bit of mix of all those things. The book says I should be getting 7 hours. He has 3 of those hours where he's making use of the commuting time in the morning. 30 minutes a day is what he's given for that for 6 days out of the week. But I drive to work, so I don't really have that time to use doing things. I'm going to try to figure out something I can do in that time that's going to be safe for me to do while I am driving. But right now I haven't figured anything out, so I'm just trying to stick with the 4 hours. This week has been pretty busy with me just trying to get my house together, catching up on laundry, basics, cooking, cleaning, homework, yada yada yada. Um, Keeping up with this is a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. The documentation part especially, making time like, okay, here's 30 minutes there or an hour there for me to go ahead and do something. That stuff's pretty easy for me to squeeze in. But making sure that I'm documenting it it's a decent amount of work for me. Right now it's 10 o'clock or later than that. I still have 2 loads of laundry I have to put away. So I really don't like my days to be this long. In the first video, I very easily and cheerfully just mentioned that, oh, you'll just cut back on some sleep to do this. But my body's pretty weak. My body, I always say you can't push my body very far. You know, it's been running and running and running. And it's got to get some sleep to recharge on. I definitely have been feeling pretty good after doing the personal things like reading, or on Monday I went out and looked for some things as far as buying and selling goods, which is pretty much what I want to do, a little bit for some extra cash. But when it starts to cut into my sleep time, when it gets to be after 11, that's definitely not something that I like. So one of the main things that I'm going to have to do is figure out a way where I'm going to get my hours in as far as my reading or different outings or hobbies that I want to keep up with, and then still make sure that I'm making time to document this. Right now, Sundays works for me because I'm going to be off Sundays for the next couple weeks. But I know eventually I will be working Sunday nights, so I'm going to have to figure out some way to keep the documentation going. Also, I'm not very tech savvy, so I've definitely got to get better at uploading videos. Probably a tripod would be quite useful. Right now I'm holding the camera just out of laziness. I don't want to have to set it up on anything. So I think a tripod would be good. I have to invest in one of those. But I guess more about week 2. I finished The Art of Fiction Writing. It ended pretty well. I learned a lot of things from that book. It talked about character development. I think one of my favorite things was science fiction. I really do like sci-fi. I love Star Wars. One of my favorite little movies, all of them. She pointed out a really interesting point. Like, it's like information that it makes sense when you hear it, but you didn't necessarily know it till it was said. But she talks about what makes good science fiction, if that's what you're going to write, is making sure that it somehow relates to real life. Like, she gives the example of a story about gigantic ants that's attacking the city. You know, it doesn't really give you any purpose, you know. Whereas, you know, the Planet of the Apes, that's a very real life story. You could relate to racism or any kind of discrimination. And then there's Avatar, you know, a new story, you know, that really gives us a detailed look. Okay, this is what could happen, you know, with the way that we're treating our Earth. You know, it spins off some way and something that relates to us, you know, and that makes it a really good story. So yeah, the book talked about that, the use of curse words. I learned a new word, expositions. You know, how to bring in information in the story that you want the reader to know that you don't necessarily want to just say. She gives the example of using flashbacks to get that information in the story, different ways you can come back from a flashback. Um, so that was definitely very interesting. Um, she also talks about a lot of abstractions and um, making them concrete. One, I'm still having a hard time really getting it to just be readily available information for me to explain it like I want to. But one example that I was thinking of in this time that I've been trying to get that set into my head good, is like I have like this personal thing, you know, where it always makes me feel good to cook for my kids, and I've always wanted to put that into a story, you know, how good it feels actually, you know, nourishing their little bodies, giving their bodies what they need as far as food goes. And you could very easily say that, but I guess a concrete example of that abstraction was one night I was sleeping here with my daughter, and I could smell on her breath the food that I had cooked, you know, and the joy that that brought me, you know, like that was my food that I was smelling. So, just getting used to that more, you know, and abstractions and concretes and separating them and saying this relates to this, why, or this, you know, makes you feel this way and why. Um, so the book talked a lot about that. I did start another Ayn Rand book, keeping up with my goal to read all of her works first this year. Um, I wanted to read some fiction, read some more fiction right now just because I finished that book and I wanted to apply it. So I had some other books here just on her philosophy strictly that I skipped over, and I went to probably um, my least favorite books to read of hers. I didn't really want to read this because I don't know very much about history, and I was pretty intimidated about reading this book. It talks about, this book is set in Russia. I don't even know when. That's how bad I am at history. You know, right at the time when they became this um, Soviet society, or Red Society as they describe it in the book. Um, so I didn't want to start it, but I didn't want to read Atlas Shrugged right now because I wanted to save that book when I would be able to give a better analysis after I've read The Art of Fiction Writing for a second time. The information just flew from me very easily. Um, so I'm practicing with We the Living. For this to be a practice book, I have to admit it is pretty good. It you know, Ayn Rand definitely. I think the reason I like it so much is not necessarily on her philosophy, but just how strongly she believed everything that she did. This book has a lot of the same ideas that The Fountainhead had in it. Um, that book I read last year, um, it kind of got the same kind of um, strong character. This one's a girl in The Fountainhead. There was a guy. The guy wanted to be an architect. This girl wants to be an engineer. And just kind of her overcoming all these socialist things that are standing in her way from her doing what it is that she wants to do, and then being valued for those things as well. So the book definitely has that same feeling about it. When I read The Fountainhead, it was a new story to me. Ayn Rand is such a good writer to me in the way that she explains the story, and also in her detail. She talks about that in The Art of Fiction Writing. The amount of detail that she gives you is very, very easy to build that scene up. You know, this is what's going on. All of her descriptive words give you something physical, that ties something physical to that scene, along with something emotionally. So it really gives you a chance to really see what it looks like and you feel it. Um, so it's definitely very interesting to read her books. Um, but like I said, the story is very similar. I'm okay to read it a second time around. Plus, I heard that this one has a different ending. So we'll see how that goes. But besides that, I did manage to make it out to do some business things this week. I want to buy and sell goods, so I went and took a look at that. Um, I have some desire to fly a plane. I am terribly afraid of heights. Um, I'm actually less afraid to be in a helicopter or fly a plane than I am to ride a roller coaster. So this is like a stepping stone for me. I took the ground course for the flight, and I guess I'll be booking that flight for sometime next week, hopefully, to really deal with my fear of roller coasters. It's that ticking sound on the way up, that tick 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 tick. It just drives me insane. Um, so yeah, so I went and did the first part of that. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I got about 3 or 4 hours counting those things, um, to just spend by myself and enjoy my week. It definitely recharged me a little bit knowing that I've done something with the week, that I actually have goals that I'm working towards. Those things make me feel better. But actually doing the work is kind of tiring. Like some days when I've come home from work and I've got done cooking and doing homework and things like that, I definitely want to lay down and I'm not sleeping, but I just want to lay down. So it's new for me to say, okay, you're not going to lay down now. You need to get your book out and start writing down what it is you read and practicing the things. But it is something that I want, so I'm just going to continue to go through it, but I can't necessarily say that every part of it is jolly. I'm hoping that it's something that's new to me, so that's why it's as much work as it is, and that as I progress with this will be easier. I'll get better at documenting, find a way that's going to work for me and my school schedule, work, all that stuff, just really fit into my schedule in general. Um, but I still want to go with it. Honestly, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. So if I stick with it throughout the year, it should be pretty good. Definitely have a lot of things that I could do. Being tech savvy isn't, something that's very important to me. Um, but I'm gonna have to get better at some of these things. It isn't on my list of things to do in 2013, but I think just from keeping up with the vlog, it's gonna have to get better. Right now it isn't very up to par, so I got some people that are helping me out, as far as figuring out how to get these files on YouTube and yada yada yada. Um, but yeah, so week 2 was, um, it's still the start. I can definitely say that. Still, still getting everything together. Kind of like um, quitting smoking cigarettes. You just really got to make it past that first week or whatever, and then it starts to get easier. I'm definitely still in that first week of smoking my old habits, even though I'm sick of them. It's still kind of hard to kick them. So we'll see how the rest um, of the month goes. Alright.